Under the silver breath of the night, I remember the first time I heard silence. It was not the kind of silence that comes when everything stops, but the kind that reveals itself when you finally begin to listen. I had come to the ancient monastery on the edge of the mountains, far from the noise of cities and the clamor of my restless thoughts. The path had been long, lined with stones worn smooth by countless footsteps, and by the time I reached the wooden gates, I was certain I would never find peace. Yet as I stepped through, the world changed. The air was cool, laced with a faint scent of incense and pine. A bell rang somewhere deep inside the courtyard, slow and deliberate, and its echo seemed to ripple through my bones. The monks moved like flowing water, each gesture patient, each breath unhurried. I felt out of place among them, like a storm that had wandered into a lake. An old monk approached me that first evening. His face was carved by time, but his eyes were calm and clear, like still water beneath the moon. "You seek peace," he said softly, "but peace is not something you find. It is something that reveals itself when you stop searching." I did not understand him then. My mind was too loud, filled with memories, regrets, and the constant hum of thoughts that never stopped moving. That night, I lay on a thin mat beside the window of my small cell. The wind whispered against the paper walls, and the moonlight spilled across the floor like water. I tried to meditate as I had been taught, counting my breaths, focusing on the rise and fall of my chest. The more I tried, the more restless I became. My mind was like a river after rain, overflowing with noise. At some point, the old monk passed by my door. He must have seen the candle still burning, because he slid it open without a sound and sat beside me. For a while, he said nothing. Then he reached out and gently extinguished the candle. Darkness filled the room. Only the faint shimmer of the moon remained. "Listen," he whispered. At first, I heard only the soft pulse of my own heartbeat. Then, slowly, other sounds emerged: the faint rustle of the wind in the bamboo grove, the distant call of a night bird, the quiet rhythm of my breathing. And within those sounds, between the spaces where they ended and began again, I heard something else in emptiness, deep and vast, like the space between stars. "This," said the monk, "is the sound of the still mind." I did not sleep that night. I simply listened. Hours passed, but time seemed to dissolve. My thoughts rose and fell like waves, and each time they came, I let them drift away. I began to see that silence was not the absence of thought. It was the gentle space that held everything without judgment. In the days that followed, the monk became my teacher. He gave me no scriptures, no long sermons, no rules to follow. Instead, He led me to the garden each morning, where dew shimmered like diamonds on the grass. He told me to sit beneath the oldest tree and breathe until the world grew quiet. Sometimes he would sweep the path beside me, his movements slow and deliberate. Sometimes he said nothing for hours. At first, I grew impatient. My mind rebelled, chasing old memories, spinning dreams of what I thought I wanted. But one morning, as the sun climbed over the mountain, I felt something shift. A leaf fell beside me, landing gently on my knee. I don't know why, but in that moment, I felt an overwhelming tenderness, as if the universe itself had exhaled. I understood, somehow, that peace was not something far away, was already here, hidden beneath the noise of my wanting. The monk once told me that the mind is like a lake. When stirred by wind, it reflects nothing. But when it grows still, even the stars bow to see their faces. I held on to those words. Every time my mind trembled with thought, I remembered the lake. I imagined its surface smoothing until all I could see was the reflection of the sky. Weeks turned into months. My old life began to fade like an echo. The monk and I spoke little. Our communication became silence itself, shared understanding carried in the spaces between words. Sometimes, when the evening bell rang, we would stand together on the temple steps and watch the last light sink into the horizon. The world felt infinite. The moon was full, resting above the mountains like a silver lantern. The wind had fallen quiet, and the entire valley seemed to be holding its breath. I sat down beside the small stream that ran behind the temple. Its water whispered softly, carrying reflections of the stars. I closed my eyes and listened. My thoughts came again, but I did not fight them. I let them come and go like passing clouds. Beneath them, something vast opened, an awareness that was not mine, yet felt more intimate than anything I had ever known. It was as though the entire world was breathing with me. For the first time in my life, I felt no separation between myself and everything around me. The sound of the stream, the rustle of the trees, the slow rhythm of my heart, they were all one. Tears welled in my eyes, not from sadness, but from a kind of quiet recognition. The monk's words returned to me. Peace is not something you find. It is something that reveals itself when you stop searching. In that stillness, I finally understood. The night deepened, and the world grew soft. I opened my eyes to see the reflection of the moon trembling gently in the stream. For a long time, I simply watched it. Then, slowly, I reached out my hand and disturbed the water. The moon scattered into 1,000 shimmering pieces, then came together again as the ripples faded. That was when I realized this was the truth of all things. Everything rises, everything falls, yet nothing is ever truly lost. Even the disturbed water returns to calmness. Even the restless heart finds its way back to stillness. When I returned to my room that night, I lay down without trying to sleep. The silence no longer felt empty. It felt alive. It hummed softly, like a quiet song that had been playing all along, waiting for me to finally hear it. And as I drifted between waking and dreaming, I felt the old monk's presence like a gentle breeze across my soul. His voice, calm and timeless, whispered through the darkness, "When your mind becomes still, the universe will speak. When your heart becomes quiet, love will echo through all things." The candle had long been extinguished, but I saw its light everywhere, in the stars, in the moon, in the space behind my eyes. And before sleep finally took me, I smiled, because I knew the truth the monk had always known. The sound of the still mind is not silence at all. It is the heartbeat of the universe, quietly waiting for us to listen. I remember the morning I met the old monk with the empty bowl. The sun had not yet risen above the mountains, and the mist still lingered over the monastery courtyard like a soft veil. I had been awake long before dawn, restless again, chasing thoughts that refused to settle. My heart felt heavy, though I could not say why. I thought I had come here to learn peace, but all I could find within myself was an quiet dissatisfaction, as if something essential was always missing. The old monk was sitting near the edge of the pond, his bowl beside him, turned upside down. I had seen him many times before, though we rarely spoke. His robes were faded, patched in places where the fabric had worn thin. There was something in the way he existed that drew my attention, like the stillness of a candle, flame untouched by the wind. That morning, I approached him hesitantly. "Master," I said, bowing low, "I don't understand. I have been meditating for weeks, trying to calm my mind, trying to find what you call peace. But it slips through me like water through fingers. No matter how much I try, I feel empty." The old monk smiled faintly, his eyes, pale and bright like river stones, lifted to meet mine. "Empty," he repeated softly, as though tasting the word. "Then why do you try to fill it?" I blinked at him, unsure what to say, because I thought emptiness was the problem. He chuckled quietly, the sound low and kind. "Sit," he said. I lowered myself beside him. He turned his bowl upright and placed it before us. "Tell me," he continued, "what is the purpose of this bowl?" "To hold food," I answered. "And if it were already full?" he asked. "Then nothing more could be added." He nodded. "So, for the bowl to serve its purpose, it must be empty." But my mind, as always, was impatient. "But I am not a bowl," I said. "I am a person. My heart feels hollow. My mind aches for meaning. How can emptiness be a gift? The old monk did not answer. Instead, he lifted the bowl in his hands, gazing into its smooth, hollow center. This bowl, he said quietly, has no judgment of what it receives. Rice, water, air, or even nothing yet remains open. That is why it can give and receive freely. But if you fill it with stones, nothing nourishing can enter. He placed the bowl back down. The morning mist swirled gently around us. Your heart, he said, is the same. You say you feel empty, but you are full of wanting. Full of ideas of what peace should look like. Full of memories and fears. Empty the bowl, and you will see the sky reflected in it. His words echoed inside me like the sound of a bell. I wanted to understand, but I could feel my old habits tightening around me like chains. I had spent my life filling myself with knowledge, desires, achievements, and regrets. To be empty felt like failure. Yet something in the old monk's tone told me there was more to this emptiness than despair. We sat in silence for a long time. The sky grew lighter, and the mist began to lift. A soft breeze rippled across the pond, scattering the reflection of the clouds. I watched as the monk dipped his hand into the water, then slowly lifted it out, letting the droplets fall back one by one. See, he said, the water never tries to hold its shape. It takes the form of whatever holds it, yet it always remains itself. You, too, must learn to be like the water, formless, open, and free. He stood then, taking his empty bowl with him, and began walking toward the temple. Something in his presence compelled me to follow. The morning bells rang as we entered the hall. The monks were already gathered, their bowls lined up before them, waiting to receive their morning meal. I noticed something I had never seen before. The bowls, though identical in shape, each reflected the candlelight differently. Some were polished and new, others scratched and worn, but all of them were empty. The silence of the hall was profound, broken only by the soft sounds of ladles pouring rice into bowls. When the old monk's turn came, he held out his bowl with both hands. The cook, a young novice, ladled rice into it until it was nearly full. But to my surprise, the old monk paused, then tilted his bowl slightly, letting some of the rice spill back into the pot. Enough, he said softly. Leave room for the universe. Later, as we sat together in the courtyard, eating our simple meal, I couldn't stop thinking about that moment. Why did you give back the rice? I finally asked. You hardly took any. He looked up, smiling faintly. Because even gratitude needs space to breathe, he said. If I take too much, my bowl becomes heavy, and my hands forget their purpose. An empty space is not a lost, is an invitation. After we finished eating, he gestured for me to walk with him. We followed the narrow stone path that wound through the garden. Every few steps, he stopped to touch something, a leaf trembling in the breeze, a pebble half buried in the soil, a spider's web glistening in the sun. "Everything here knows how to be empty," he said. "The leaf does not hold on to the branch when it is time to fall. The spider's web lets go of the morning dew when the sun rises. Even the sky remains empty so that clouds may pass." I listened, feeling a quiet shift inside me. The world I had once thought solid and unchanging now seemed alive, breathing, full of silent wisdom. I began to see that the emptiness the monk spoke of was not a void, but a vast openness, freedom that allowed life to move through without resistance. That evening, he handed me his bowl. "Tomorrow," he said, "you will carry this during the morning alms round." I bowed deeply, accepting the bowl as though it were a sacred treasure. The next morning, we walked together into the nearby village. The air was cool, and the smell of wood smoke drifted from small houses. Children stopped to watch us. Dogs barked and wagged their tails. One by one, the villagers came forward, placing small offerings into our bowls: rice, fruit, vegetables. Each time, I bowed in gratitude, feeling the warmth of their generosity. But as the bowl grew heavier, I noticed something unsettling within myself. A strange pride began to stir, a thought whispering, "Look how much I have received." I felt my back straighten, my steps grow confident. I thought I was doing well. Then I noticed the old monk walking beside me. His bowl was nearly empty. He smiled at each person, bowed deeply, and continued walking, never asking, never expecting. At first, I pitied him. Why did no one offer him more? I thought. But then I saw his face, radiant, serene, untouched by any hint of disappointment. He was content, his empty bowl cradled in both hands as though it contained the entire universe. When we returned to the monastery, I could not help but ask, "Master, why didn't you take more? So many would have given to you." He looked down at his empty bowl, then back at me. "I took what was offered," he said. "Nothing less, nothing more. The moment I begin to expect, I no longer receive, only take. And when I take, my heart becomes heavy. An empty bowl reminds me to stay light." I looked at my own bowl, still half full, and for the first time, I felt its weight. It was not just the rice. Inside was the burden of my pride, the quiet shadow of wanting more. Slowly, I understood. That night, I placed the bowl before me as I meditated. The moonlight reflected on its curved surface. I turned it upside down, just as the monk had done on the morning we met. The hollow space beneath it felt sacred, like an invisible temple. I realized that true emptiness was not a lack, it was a doorway, a quiet openness that allowed life to flow freely in and out. Days passed, and my mind began to mirror that bowl. Thoughts still came, but they no longer clung. Emotions still rose, but they faded gently, like ripples dissolving in water. I began to see beauty in the simple things, the rhythm of sweeping floors, the echo of footsteps in the hall, the sound of rain against the roof. One evening, as the sun set over the mountains, I found the old monk again sitting by the pond. His bowl lay beside him, turned upside down. Without a word, I sat next to him and did the same. We watched as the last light faded into the water, the surface catching the colors of the dying day. After a long silence, he spoke. One day, he said softly, "This bowl will break. It is clay, after all, but even when it shatters, its emptiness remains. Remember that. Form comes and goes. Emptiness endures." I did not reply. I simply watched the ripples spread across the pond, then disappear into stillness. The monk's words echoed through me like the tolling of a distant bell. I felt something inside me, Lucina, quiet release, gentle and complete. That night, as I lay down to sleep, I dreamed of countless bowls floating in a vast sea, all different in shape and color, yet all holding the same infinite emptiness. I saw the old monk among them, smiling, his bowl in hand. The stars reflected inside it, and in the dream, I finally understood that what I had been searching for was never something to fill me, but something to free me. When I awoke, the morning light was just beginning to touch the horizon. The bowl beside me was empty, yet somehow it felt full of quiet, full of peace, full of the simple truth the monk had tried to teach me from the beginning. When the heart becomes empty of wanting, it becomes full of everything. It began on a morning soaked in mist, the kind that makes the world seem like it's breathing quietly beneath a blanket of clouds. I was sweeping the stone path that led from the temple to the small bamboo grove beyond. The broom in my hands was made of twigs bound by a single strand of hemp, fragile yet steady, like everything in this place. Each stroke made a soft, rhythmic whisper across the stones, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. The old monk had once told me, 1,000 miles of peace begins with a single, gentle step. At the time, I didn't understand. I thought peace was something grand, something that would arrive suddenly, like a flash of lightning. But peace, I was beginning to learn, moved like the wind through bamboo, soft, patient, and unseen. For months, I had tried to still my mind through meditation. I had sat for hours in silence, breathed with the rhythm of the monks, and repeated ancient sutras until my voice became one with the sound of the bell. Yet, my thoughts still fluttered restlessly. Sometimes, they clung to memories of the life I had left behind, the noise of the city, the people I once knew, the ambitions I once carried like burning coals. Other times, they spun dreams of enlightenment, as if peace were a mountain peak waiting to be conquered. That morning, as I swept, I saw the old monk standing at the far end of the path. He was holding his staff, watching me with his usual calm. "You are still trying too hard," he said as I approached. "You chase silence like a man chases the wind. You must learn to walk with it instead." "I don't know how," I admitted. "My thoughts move faster than my steps." He smiled. "Then let your steps teach your mind how to move." He motioned for me to follow him. We walked together down the path, neither of us speaking. The stones were damp beneath my feet, and small beads of water clung to the edges of the leaves. The air smelled of rain and earth. After a while, the monk stopped and looked at me. "Walk," he said, "but do not hurry. Feel the world move beneath you." So I began to walk, slowly, awkwardly. I tried to match my breath with my steps. My feet touched the ground, then lifted again. The monk's eyes followed me, patient and unblinking. "Not like that," he said softly. "You are walking as if the earth were beneath you. Walk as if the earth were carrying you." I didn't understand at first, but as I took another step, I tried to imagine the ground rising gently to meet my foot. I felt the coolness of the earth through the soles of my sandals, the softness of moss between the stones. Each step became less an action and more a conversation, a quiet exchange between myself and the world. The monk began to walk beside me, his own steps light and deliberate. "Each movement," he said, "is a prayer. Each breath, a bow. When you walk like this, the world becomes your temple." We walked until the sun broke through the mist, painting the path in bands of gold. Birds began to stir in the trees, their songs floating like fragments of dreams. I felt something shifting inside me, softening. The restlessness that had always lived beneath my skin began to dissolve, replaced by a strange, wordless joy. The monk stopped and pointed to the ground. "Do you see this?" he asked. I looked down. Tiny ants were crossing the path, carrying crumbs many times their size. They moved in perfect rhythm, their steps sure and precise. "They never hurry," the monk said. "They do not wonder if they are too slow. They simply walk their path." He continued walking, and I followed. The path curved gently through the bamboo grove, where sunlight filtered through tall green stalks, swaying softly in the wind. The air shimmered with light and shadow, and the sound of rustling leaves blended with our breathing. I began to feel as though I were dissolving into the rhythm of it all, each step, each breath, each moment folding into the next dot. We reached a small clearing where a stone lantern stood beside a pool of water. The surface was perfectly still, mirroring the sky and the slender stalks of bamboo that leaned over it. The monk sat down by the edge and gestured for me to do the same. He dipped his finger into the water, tracing slow circles. "Tell me," he said, "what happens when you disturb still water?" "It ripples," I said, "and when you stop, it becomes calm again." He nodded. "The mind is no different. Every step you take in anger, every word spoken without awareness, ripples through you. But if you walk gently, the ripples fade and the reflection returns." He looked at me then, eyes soft as dawn. "Peace is not something you arrive at," he said. "It is how you travel. The path itself becomes the destination when your steps are gentle." We sat there for what felt like hours, watching the water. At some point, I closed my eyes. My breathing slowed, deepened. I could feel the world humming around me, the rustle of the trees, the distant murmur of monks chanting from the temple, the whisper of my own pulse. When I opened my eyes again, the monk was gone. Only the faint imprint of his footprints remained on the soft earth, leading back toward the temple. I followed the prints slowly, each one a lesson in the days that followed. I practiced walking meditation everywhere, across the courtyard, through the garden, along the narrow stone corridors. I discovered that each surface had its own sound, its own feeling beneath my feet. The wooden floors of the meditation hall were smooth and cool, the pebbled paths warm beneath the afternoon sun. Even the sound of my own footsteps became like a mantra, soft, steady, present. One afternoon, while I was walking, I noticed a small snail crossing the path ahead of me. Its tiny body glistened, and it moved with infinite patience, leaving behind a delicate trail that caught the sunlight. I stopped and watched. The snail had no concern for where it was going. Its journey was its home. Something inside me relaxed completely. I realized that all my life I had been running not towards something, but away from the present. That evening, I found the old monk tending the garden. He was kneeling among the rows of herbs, trimming each plant with quiet attention. I told him about the snail and what I had seen. He listened without interrupting, his hands still moving steadily through the leaves. When I finished, he smiled. "Then you have seen what I could never teach you with words," he said. "Even the smallest creature carries the wisdom of the Buddha if your eyes are open enough to see it." He handed me a small watering pot and pointed to the row beside him. "Walk," he said, "and water each plant as if you are blessing it." So I did. With each step, I felt the earth beneath me, the weight of the pot in my hand, the sound of water spilling gently over the roots. I felt the cool droplets splash against my fingers, and I realized that my movements had slowed to match my breathing. Each step was deliberate, each motion filled with care. The act of walking had become prayer. After we finished, the monk stood and looked over the garden. "The path of gentle steps," he said, "is not only for your feet. It is for your thoughts, your words, your hands. Move gently through this world, and the world will move gently through you." That night, I sat by the window of my small room, watching the moon rise. Its light fell across the floor in quiet silver streams. The sound of the night insects was steady, rhythmic, almost like the echo of my breathing. I thought of every step I had taken that day, one small, each one slow, yet I felt as though I had walked across eternity. Weeks turned into months. My steps grew lighter, my thoughts quieter. I began to feel the presence of the old monk, even when he wasn't beside me, his teachings woven into the rhythm of my breath. His silence guiding me like a compass. I walked through the world differently now. I noticed the tiny details, the way sunlight lingered on a leaf, the sound of rain on the roof, the moment between heartbeats where stillness lived. One day, as I was walking alone through the forest path, a sudden storm rolled in. Rain began to fall in heavy sheets, drenching the earth. The path turned slick with mud, and the bamboo swayed violently in the wind. For a moment, panic rose in me. I thought about running back to the temple, but then I remembered the monk's words, "Walk as if the earth is carrying you." My robes clung to my skin, and the rain ran down my face. But with each step, I felt something powerful in intimacy with everything around me. The storm was no longer against me. It was within me. The rain fell, not on me, but through me. I began to laugh softly, the sound swallowed by the wind. When I finally reached the temple, the old monk was waiting under the eaves. I bowed to him, soaked and shivering, but smiling. He looked at me, eyes bright with quiet pride. "You have learned," he said simply. I didn't ask what he meant. I didn't need to. I could feel it in the rhythm of my heart, in the calm behind my breath. For the first time in my life, I was not walking toward peace, I was walking in peace. That night, after the storm passed, I returned to the path. The moon had come out again, and the stones glistened with leftover rain. I walked slowly, barefoot this time. Each step pressed into the cool earth, and the sound of water dripping from the leaves kept perfect time with my heartbeat. Somewhere in the distance, a bell rang once, deep and resonant. I stopped and looked up at the stars appearing through the clouds. The entire world felt alive, breathing, pulsing, moving in harmony. I understood then that the path of gentle steps is not a road outside of us. It begins where we stand, in the simple act of being fully present with each movement, each breath, each heartbeat. It is the art of living without resistance, of touching the earth lightly enough that it never feels our weight. As I stood there, the sound of the wind moved through the bamboo once more, soft and endless, like the breath of the universe itself. I closed my eyes and listened, and in that sacred silence, I felt the old monk's voice echo within me. Walk gently, and the world will bow to your steps. Move slowly, and eternity will walk beside you. I took another breath, another step. The world did not change, but I had. The path continued beneath my feet, stretching into the horizon, soft and eternal, waiting for nothing but the next gentle step. When I first arrived at the small mountain village of Shinki, the sun was setting behind the distant peaks, painting the sky in hues of amber and rose. The air smelled of pine and incense, and the sound of distant bells floated through the valley. I had come in search of something I could not name, a peace that seemed to live beyond thought, beyond words. My heart was restless, burdened with desires I could neither fulfill nor release. Every breath felt heavy, as though I was carrying the weight of unseen years. At the edge of the village stood a humble monastery, its wooden gate half covered in vines and moss. A single lantern hung above the entrance, dimly flickering in the growing dusk. I had heard stories about the monk who lived there, old man said to have once been a scholar, a warrior and a wanderer, but who now spoke little and taught nothing except silence. I entered quietly, unsure if I would be welcomed inside the monastery courtyard. The air was still, filled with a faint fragrance of sandalwood. I called out softly, and a moment later, the old monk appeared. His robe was simple, his face weathered, yet serene, as if carved from years of patient living. He did not ask who I was or why I had come. He simply looked at me for a long moment, then gestured for me to follow him. We walked through a garden where bamboo leaves whispered like secret prayers. Small stones formed a narrow path leading to a wooden hut. Inside, a single mat lay beside a low table, and on that table burned another lantern, its light steady and warm. The monk pointed to the mat, indicating that I should sit. I obeyed, feeling the roughness of the straw beneath me. Without a word, he sat across from me and began to pour tea. The sound of the tea trickling into the cup felt louder than the world itself. He placed the cup in front of me. For a moment, I hesitated, unsure if I should drink. But then I did, and the warmth of the tea spread through my chest like a quiet flame. Finally, the monk spoke. When night falls, he said slowly, and the lantern burns low, what remains? I looked at him, unsure how to answer. I thought of shadows, of silence, of dreams, but he shook his head gently, as though he had heard my thoughts. "What remains," he said, "is what has always been, the light within the flame. When the oil runs out, the flame returns to its source, but the light never dies." He rose and walked to the open window. The wind brushed through the trees outside, carrying the sound of a distant waterfall. "We chase the world," he continued, "searching for light outside ourselves. But the truth is simple. The lantern you seek has always been within. It only needs stillness to shine." That night, I could not sleep. The lantern in the room flickered softly, its glow breathing against the wooden walls. I watched it as if the small flame were whispering secrets. And then, for a brief moment, I understood. The light did not belong to the lantern, it was part of everything. It illuminated not because it tried to, but because it was its nature to shine. The next morning, the monk asked me to walk with him up the mountain. The path was steep and lined with wildflowers. Mist hung low, curling around the rocks like slow-moving clouds. We didn't speak for a long time. At last, we reached a small cliff where a single stone lantern stood. Its bowl was empty, no oil, no wick. Yet when the first rays of sunlight touched it, the stone seemed to glow softly, as if remembering the countless nights it had once illuminated. The monk placed his hand on the lantern. "This," he said, "is the lantern of inner peace. It shines even when there is no fire. Do you see?" I nodded, though a part of me was still unsure. He smiled and motioned for me to sit beside him. We watched as the morning light grew stronger, pouring gold over the valley below. Then he told me a story. "Many years ago," he said, "there was a monk who traveled the world with a lantern, just like this one. Every night he lit it to guide his path through the forest. But one night, a great storm came, and the lantern's flame was blown out. He was lost in darkness. Frightened, he stumbled for hours, until at last he collapsed beside a stream. In the stillness, he looked into the water and saw the reflection of the moon. It was then he realized the light he sought had never been in the lantern. It had always been shining above him, within him, all around him." He turned to me and said softly, "When you learn to see the moon, even when the lantern is gone, peace will never leave you." Days turned into weeks. I stayed in the monastery, helping tend the garden, carrying water, sweeping the courtyard. The work was simple, almost silent. But in that simplicity, I began to notice things I had never seen before: the sound of wind moving through bamboo, the rhythm of my own heartbeat during meditation, the way sunlight filtered through leaves in patterns of gold and green dot one evening. As I was lighting the lantern outside the meditation hall, the old monk came and stood beside me. I watched the flame dance in the twilight. "Master," I asked quietly, How can I keep this light within me when I return to the world beyond these mountains? He looked at me for a long moment, then said, "You do not need to carry the light. You only need to remember it." I frowned slightly, not understanding. He smiled faintly, then blew out the flame. Darkness wrapped around us, yet his eyes remained calm and unafraid. "Do you see?" he whispered. "The flame is gone, but the darkness does not destroy the light, it only hides it for a moment. Peace is not the absence of noise, nor the absence of struggle. It is the quiet knowing that all things are temporary, except the truth within." For a long time, we stood there in silence. Then he walked away, leaving me alone in the soft night air. I closed my eyes and listened. The wind, the crickets, the distant waterfall, they all became one sound, one rhythm, one breath. And somewhere in that endless breath, I felt the faint glow of something vast and eternal. The next morning, before dawn, I decided to leave. The monk met me at the gate. He handed me the small lantern I had lit so many times during my stay. "Take this," he said, "but remember, it's only a mirror. Let it remind you of the light you already hold." As I walked down the path, the lantern swinging gently from my hand, I felt a stillness unlike anything I had known before. The sun rose slowly over the mountains, and the mist began to fade. I could feel the warmth of the light touching my skin, but more than that, I could feel it awakening something inside me. The village was quiet when I reached it. The world was still waking, and everything seemed to shimmer with a soft, golden glow. For the first time, I realized that peace was not something I had to find, was something I had to see. It had always been there, hidden beneath the noise of thought and the weight of longing. As I continued down the road, the lantern swayed beside me, unlit, yet bright in its own way. And I smiled, knowing that even if the night came again, even if every light around me went out, I would not be afraid. For the lantern of inner peace had been lit by fire, but by understanding. And that light, I knew, would never fade. When I left the mountain monastery, the air was still cold from the night. The sun had not yet risen, and the valley was covered in a soft silver mist that clung to the trees like breath. In my hand, I carried the lantern the old monk had given me. Its frame was made of weathered bamboo, its paper thin and fragile, yet it felt heavy with meaning. He had told me, "This lantern is only a mirror of what already shines within." For many miles, I walked in silence, following the narrow path that wound through forests and over streams. Every sound seemed deeper now: the rustle of leaves, the gentle murmur of water, the rhythm of my own steps. I was no longer searching for something outside of me, yet I felt the presence of a quiet calling. Like a distant song I could almost remember. By the time I reached the first village, the day had fully bloomed. Smoke rose from the chimneys, and the scent of rice and tea filled the morning air. The villagers looked at me curiously as I passed, perhaps wondering why a traveler carried an unlit lantern in broad daylight. A few children ran alongside me, asking questions, but I smiled and said nothing. There was peace in my silence, a peace that did not depend on explanation. I found shelter that night beneath a large banyan tree on the outskirts of the village. The branches spread wide like open arms, and the roots twisted through the earth like veins of memory. As I rested, I lit the lantern for the first time since leaving the monastery. The small flame flickered gently, and its glow painted circles of gold on the ground. I watched the flame for a long time. The wind moved softly, bending the fire, but never extinguishing it. In that moment, I remembered the monk's words. When you understand the light within, you will no longer fear the wind. As the night deepened, I closed my eyes. In the darkness, behind my eyelids, I saw faces, people I had known, moments I had lost, and things I once believed I needed. They passed through my mind like shadows, but instead of holding on to them, I let them drift away. The more I released, the lighter I felt. The next morning, I awoke to find that the flame had burned out during the night. The lantern was now dark, yet I didn't feel the usual ache of loss. The silence that surrounded me was full, not empty. I realized then that peace was not in the flame itself. It was in the space the flame once illuminated. I continued my journey for many days, crossing rivers and climbing hills, visiting temples, and speaking to wanderers who shared stories of their own searches. Some were chasing wealth, some chasing wisdom, and some merely trying to forget the world they left behind. Each one believed that peace was something they would one day find at the end of a road. In the words of a master, or in the beauty of the stars. I listened, but said little. One evening, I came upon a small temple deep within a forest. It was half broken, its roof covered in moss, and the walls cracked from years of rain. Inside, an old woman sat beside an altar, humming softly to herself. I bowed to her and asked if I might stay the night. She nodded and smiled, her eyes as gentle as falling leaves as the sun sank behind the trees. She lit a small candle and placed it before a statue of the Buddha. "Many come here," she said quietly, hoping the Buddha will give them peace. But they forget the Buddha himself had to sit in silence before he saw the light within. I looked at the candle's flame, trembling but unwavering. "How do you see it?" I asked her. "How do you keep it burning?" She smiled again, and her voice was soft. "The light does not belong to me. It belongs to the stillness. As long as I remember the stillness, the light will always find me. Her words settled into my heart like rain soaking into dry earth. I knew then that the monk's teaching, the lantern's gift, and the old woman's wisdom were all threads of the same truth piece, was not something to be found, but something to be remembered. When I opened my eyes, dawn was breaking. The first light of morning touched the world, and everything shimmered with gentle gold. The flame in my lantern had burned out again, but I didn't relight it. I didn't need to. I spent the following days helping the old woman tend to the temple sweeping leaves, mending the broken steps and carrying water from the stream. We spoke little, yet I felt an unspoken harmony between us. Sometimes she would hum softly, and I would find myself joining her without meaning to. It felt like the whole world was singing through us, a song without words, a hymn of simple being. One afternoon, a traveler came to the temple, young man, weary and desperate. He fell to his knees before the altar and cried, "I have lost everything. Please tell me how to find peace." The old woman handed him a bowl of water and said, "Drink slowly." He obeyed, though he looked confused. When he finished, she asked him, "Where is the water now?" He touched his stomach and said, "Inside me." She smiled. "Then why do you still thirst?" The young man looked at her, startled, and then, slowly, his tears began to fade. That night, as I sat outside watching the stars, I realized that her teaching was the same as the monks and the same as the flames. Peace, like water, cannot be kept, must be lived. Years have passed since that journey. I still carry the lantern, though I rarely light it now. It hangs in my home, by the window where the morning light always falls first. When I see the sunlight pour through its thin paper, I remember the monk's words. The lantern only mirrors the light you already hold. Sometimes travelers come to me now, asking the same questions I once asked. They want to know how to find calm, how to silence their minds, how to end their suffering. I listen to their stories and then point to the lantern. It is already lit, I tell them. You just have to stop searching long enough to see it. At night, when the world grows quiet, I sit beneath the stars and breathe. The wind brushes against the trees, carrying with it the scent of pine and memory. The river whispers somewhere far away, and the moon reflects in its waters like a perfect flame in that stillness. I know that the lantern of inner peace is not a thing of wood or fire, is the awareness that burns beyond all endings, beyond all change. It is the light that remains when every other light fades. And sometimes, when I close my eyes and listen deeply, I can still hear the old monk's voice echoing in the silence of my heart. Do not seek the flame, for you are the flame. Do not fear the darkness, for you are the light. Peace is not something to find, it is what you already are. And in that moment, I smile softly. The night stretches wide, endless and calm. The lantern beside me is dark, but the world glows with quiet brilliance. Within and without, there is no difference. The lantern of inner peace burns eternally.